Great. Good evening. I would like to call to order the October 4, 2021 Lake Washington School Board study session. Let the record reflect that all board members are present and participating remotely. There's been a recent update to guidelines for attending board meetings, Proclamation 20-28.15, the Open Public Meetings Act and Public Records Act. Those proclamations extend the prohibition on in-person public meetings, but create an exemption for public meetings that can comply with the guidelines for business meetings found in the miscellaneous venues guidance. That guidance provides that as of June 30, 2021, public agencies may host in-person public meetings under the Open Public Meetings Act with no restrictions on capacity, no physical distancing requirements, but current applicable face covering requirements are in place. This board values public participation and engagement in the meetings of the board. The board will continue to comply with the laws related to open public meetings and current emergency requirements related to miscellaneous venues. If that guidance and all other requirements related to the COVID-19 cannot be met, the board must hold its meetings remotely and provide access via live stream and audio. Due to recent non-compliance at school board meetings, the board is determined to hold its meetings remotely. Board meetings, study sessions, jumped ahead of myself. The board will continue to notify the public of the location of its meetings through the board meetings tab on the board docs webpage of our website. At this time, it is planned that all board meetings scheduled in September, October, and November will be held remotely unless there are changes in the guidance provided. Board meetings, study sessions, and special board meetings will continue to be live streamed and viewable on the district's website. If you are unable to listen to the meeting on the website, you may also do so by calling 425-936-2813, conference ID 37127 to listen to the meeting. We have several topics on the agenda for tonight for the study session. The first topic is discussion of policy number 2411, titled Academic Acceleration. I think, well, Dr. Holman, could you get us started on this?
Absolutely. As the board knows, administrative policy really has been delegated to me to manage, adopt, and process, but there are times when there is state law that requires the board to take action on administrative policy. And so here we have one of those instances where the board does need to take action. House Bill 1599 had a number of different components to it, and we're really in that final step in complying with the total House Bill 1599 requirements. And tonight we're talking about the academic acceleration policy. And so with us is Associate Superintendent Mike Van Orden with his hat on as Chief Academic Officer. And so he will walk us through these pieces and share with us just the research, the thinking, and benchmarking across districts as to really what does this academic acceleration policy really mean in practice as well as policy. Mike?
Yeah, I just want to check that everybody see the first slide okay. Great. So as Dr. Holman mentioned, this is the last in a series of requirements that came from House Bill 1599. And if you can remember, pre-COVID, we did quite a bit of work on this about 2 years ago. And if you recall, there were a number of requirements that fell into House Bill 1599. It was originally, I think, entitled Graduation Pathways. And so we talked about a number of things changes we made as a district for our assessment systems, changes to the high school and beyond plan and course enrollment, waivers, and all sorts of things. And those were all required to be in place before now. What we have now is, as Dr. Holman mentioned, the last thing on the list of requirements is an academic acceleration policy that will start to have an impact on students starting in the 22-23 school year. And that's specifically because this policy is tied very much to smarter balanced assessment in the Washington Comprehensive Assessment of Science. And as you may know, those assessments weren't given last year. They're given in the fall of this year. And we also have requirements that are related to students' course taking that allows them to access advanced courses. And again, this will be the first year that they will have those courses, and then those will influence the courses they take next year. So tonight we're going to talk specifically about the academic acceleration policy, the components of it, the purpose, and then potentially how this plays out over this year and then as we move into next. So we wanted to start just by helping people understand the intentions behind this. And, you know, there's language actually in the policy, but also in the conversations that have happened around it, in that there have been, as we've discussed many times, historic barriers to advanced coursework. And those barriers could be for any number of reasons, but they have had a disproportionate effect on students of color, students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, students who have English as a second language. And so the idea behind this really was to kind of get through some of the barriers that have been put in place for any number of reasons that allows students to access courses. And really the goal is by the time they get to the end of their high school, they have access that's intentional to dual credit opportunities. And those dual credit opportunities, as you may know, allow students to earn college credit, which also have a financial benefit. If you can earn some college credit in high school, those are fewer classes you have to take in college, which is very expensive right now. And so all of these are kind of the ideas behind this academic acceleration policy. And then as you move from intention to practice, that's where really the work begins. And so that's what we'll spend our time on tonight in this brief presentation. So just as a high-level overview of the policy requirements, first of all, students who take a Smarter Balanced assessment in 8th grade and who meet standard on that assessment must automatically be enrolled in the next, and this is where it's interesting, the next most rigorous advanced course in high school. And so for English, that allows students to be automatically enrolled in the next most advanced English course, and for math, the next most advanced math course. It also opens up opportunities, if they meet standard on the SBA, Smarter Balanced Assessment, for social studies courses as well. And then for science, as opposed to math and ELA, where students are automatically enrolled in the next most advanced course, in science, it makes them eligible. And so you may know in the past, some courses have prerequisites on them that had a letter-based grade, for example, or a teacher recommendation. What this says is if you meet standard on science, you are eligible to take advanced science courses. And you can't say, well, we're going to have a letter-based grade and you had to have a C+ or higher in this course to take the class. That being said, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, there are some courses that build in a progressive way. So rather than saying, well, the next most advanced course is AP Physics or AP Chemistry, it's reasonable and you're allowed to say, well, students need to have chemistry because that's a course that comes before AP Chemistry. And so advanced course could be chemistry. And again, some of these are sequential. And so as we think about students' access, we have to think about the sequence of courses and the content development over time. But we want to make sure we're not putting students, for example, into remedial courses or keeping them from access to those courses if they meet standard on either of those two assessments. In addition, students who take advanced courses then are either eligible or automatically enrolled in the next most advanced course. And again, this gets a little tricky because, for example, if you take an advanced placement chemistry class, there's not necessarily a next class that makes most sense for you to be automatically enrolled in. And so that's something we need to work through. But it does allow you to say, if I've passed this advanced class, I can be either automatically enrolled or eligible to take the next class. So you can't say, well, yeah, we don't think you should be in this class, or we have these prerequisites that are keeping you from accessing it. And then finally, parents and guardians have the ability to say, you know what, this doesn't align with what our student needs to take or we want our student to take, as well as students have the ability to have some say in that. And any changes or any enrollment needs to be aligned with the student's high school and beyond plan. So if they have high school and beyond plan goals that push them into a particular sequence of course taking, they can say that, you know what, that's the reason I want to be put into that class instead of being automatically enrolled in this other. So those are the big buckets of the policy. How it plays out is the interesting part. And this is where we still have some work to do and why we're doing this now so that we can get everything queued up for when students begin to enroll in classes for next year. So here's an example of math. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. And this is an example. There's other ways this might play out. But right now, in not just in Lake Washington, but in schools around the state, and one of the ideas behind this is we have students who are enrolled in 8th grade math. And let's say a student doesn't do so well in that class. again, we don't have a lot of this, but there are some cases where it happens, and it also happens in other school districts where a teacher might say, you know what, the student's not ready for algebra, so we're going to put them in a remedial class or a pre-algebra class so that we can really get them ready because their grades aren't that great. But the student met standard on the Smarter Balanced Assessment in 8th grade. So in the past, they might have taken a remedial class or a pre-algebra class, and then by their 10th grade, they took algebra, geometry, and then they have one more math class they have to take to meet the graduation requirements for math. But by their senior year, they haven't had access to a dual credit course, for example, an AP course in statistics or an AP course in calculus. So this old system really was preventing kids from accessing those dual language or dual credit opportunities. So now the way it works is if a student takes Math 8, regardless of the grade they earn, if they meet standard on Smarter Balanced Assessment, they're automatically enrolled in algebra as a 9th grader. And then similarly, if they pass algebra as an advanced class, they're automatically enrolled in geometry. So we have to really keep track of that. Now, here's the interesting part, is those are classes that are required for graduation. So we can't say, well, again, we've got this great AP statistics class, and you may not need algebra for that, so we're going to put you automatically in that because that's an advanced class. Well, you have to have algebra to graduate. It's a state requirement, State Board of Education, it's a district requirement. And so what we're reading for math in particular is the next most advanced math class after Math 8 is algebra, similarly geometry, then algebra 2. And then they do still have, if we go with the sequence, the opportunity to be enrolled in dual credit by their senior year and earn that dual credit option that allows them to earn potential college credit. So math, again, kind of interesting because there are specific course requirements. English language arts, on the other hand, it's 4 years of ELA, but state board requirements and our policy doesn't specify specific courses. And students in high school have lots of options in English language arts and social studies. So we still have some work to do to define very clearly, once you leave English language arts 8 as an 8th grader, what are those most advanced classes? And as we look at science, you're going to see some questions that would come up for that. And then looks like there are some questions that you have. So similarly, let's look at science as an example, because again, with science, we don't have prescribed courses. It's 3 years of science, 2 years lab. And so again, before, students might have met standard on the WCAS, and they would be enrolled in the sequence of biology and the earth systems, physics and the universe, and chemistry. We do have, though, in our schools, in our high schools, honors courses as 9th graders. And so we've done a lot of work, and our schools have done a lot of work to eliminate the letter-based grade requirements for those courses. The way we're reading this, though, and again with science, it's eligible for, students are, if they meet standard at 8th grade, eligible for that honors biology, then could go into a physics or chemistry as a sequence course to set them up for AP physics or AP chemistry. But again, the choice of those courses really is dependent on the student's high school and beyond plan. So if a student is automatically enrolled in one or the other, they may not be taking the class that they need. And so we still need to be really clear on how students are enrolled in courses and which courses they're enrolled in, because students do have choice and say in their course taking, and we want to make sure they're taking the courses that they need to take and want to take. But again, this pathway allows them to get into dual credit courses much more quickly. So you can imagine for English language arts, if we have an honors English language arts, or for example, at Eastlake High School, where we have honors humanities and a general track, the question that we're digging into is, do they automatically get enrolled into that honors track? And we've looked around at some neighboring districts. Some of our districts around us have just gotten rid of general courses altogether and call every 9th grade ELA course an honors course, which is interesting. Others are doing kind of what we have here. They might have a general 9th grade course, but they have an honors course, and so they automatically enroll ELA in honors. And so we're working through that as well. So it's interesting to play this all out, and we're working through course catalogs and all that to get there. So I see some questions, and then I can talk about next steps. I'll just go in the order I see up here. Cassandra, and then Mark, and then Siri.
Thank you. So I know we have classrooms of 8th graders taking geometry.
Right.
What does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So it'd be the same thing. So students taking geometry would then be automatically enrolled in the next course in the sequence, which is Algebra 2. Then that lets them take pre-calc and calculus. And so again, because it's a sequential course taking, particularly Algebra 2 is a sequential course for pre-calc, it sets them up to do that. So it's just, you could move this up or down regardless of what grade they're taking the course in, and that would be the next course in the sequence.
And then where would AP Stats fit in?
So AP Stats could be right here. So AP Stats could come right after Algebra 2. It could also, again, if they were taking this as a 9th and 10th grader, they could take AP Stats or Pre-Calc and then AP Calc.
And then what about for the kids that the math in high school is just not enough for them? Do we have any partnerships with any local colleges if kids want to take the next course?
Yeah, we have, so we have college and the high school courses, running start courses that students can take as well. And so again, those are all dual credit options for kids. And that's the intention behind this academic acceleration, is to get kids access to those courses before graduation.
Right. I don't know of any community college or local like BC that offers a higher level of math than we offer. Is that offered somewhere?
Then a calculus AB or BC is what you're asking.
Right.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. Again, it's because now you're starting to get into, rather than sequential courses, you start getting specialized. And so it's not the next course in the sequence.
Right.
So we could check on that.
Yeah, that would be great to find out what options there are.
Mark?
Actually, I think Siri's ahead of me. You want to go ahead, Siri? Guess not. Okay. Quick question, really. There was some traffic earlier in the semester, actually right after school started, on Facebook of parents, especially one parent in particular, saying, "Look, my daughter all of a sudden was put into these accelerated classes, the honors classes, and she had too many of them. In fact, she even came back and said, 'Dad, this is too much.' And rather than have her go through the semester and feel that burden, they wanted to have, at least one of the classes drop back to either a regular class or some elective. And they were told they couldn't do it. Now, I question, it's a matter of miscommunications or what, but if a student is automatically enrolled in whatever higher level class, do they have the option of opting back out?
Yeah, so it's there's two parts. One is before the fact, can you just indicate you don't even want to be placed there? And then the second is after you get in. Before the fact, probably what we'll end up doing is, as students are signing up for enrollment, parents would say, you know what, we want to opt out. So that takes care of it on the front end. But like you said, you might say, you know what, I want to try it and see it out. And does it work? And then you find out, actually, I'm over my head. I think what we're seeing students and schools facing is, we staff and enroll students in these courses. And then when large numbers of students leave, we have to reschedule everything. And so there may not be space or capacity or staffing necessarily. I think, though, we have to probably draw a softer line, given that we're automatically enrolling students in that. And then there needs to be a period of time where, into the semester, we can say, yep, you can back out if it's too much, even if you wanted to try, because it's going to be automatic. That being said, all the challenges I mentioned of suddenly a class drops from 20 to 10, and then do you still staff it? And then another class goes from 20 to 30 or 30 to 40. How do you staff that? So that's the challenge of having students move after the semester started.
No, I think one of the families, in fact, when they got, before the semester even started, the daughter was starting to freak out a little bit and said, let's not go 4 courses of honors classes in a semester. And rightfully so. I mean, if that's what the child up front and the parents said, I don't have a problem with them backing in. At that point, it doesn't affect your numbers of your balance of classrooms. But they were told, go ahead and try. See if you can do it. Yeah. And that wasn't what parents wanted to do.
I think it's, site specific and context specific. I know many of our schools really do work to try to get kids to the schedules that they need and want, if they can at all. But yeah, you're right. I think that's going to be a challenge we're going to have to be ready for. Siri?
Oh, sorry, just trying to work through all the little remote things. So as I hear this, it's very clear to me that this aligns well with what we talked about with OE 14 and some of the policy around the equity policy and inclusion that we put forward. So I appreciate how this is aligning. There's some unintended consequences. I'm wondering how you've thought through those. So as I look through, if you test well, then you're automatically placed in. for our students where perhaps they actually do very well in the class and their grades are good, however, they don't test well. How will that play out under this policy?
Yeah, so again, according to the way we currently schedule, let's say you pass 8th grade math, you're automatically enrolled into algebra. So even if you got a 1 or a 2, that's not typically keeping you out of algebra. It's the next course you take. I think where we might see it, for example, though, is a student who takes algebra and maybe doesn't test so well, gets a low grade in it, and then there's a conversation about, and let's say maybe doesn't meet standards. So according to this, you wouldn't automatically go into geometry. There'd be a choice. I think there'd be a conversation with the student and family about, do you want to retake algebra? Do you want to take geometry? And so probably you get a little bit more flexibility and options because you're not, by the letter of the policy, required to automatically be enrolled in geometry. You might say, I want to retake it.
So this is more of an or as opposed to an and.
If you don't meet standard, but if you do meet standard, it's just you're plugged in. I mean, there's no choice. And so that's like you said, it's an unintended consequence. Students who don't meet standard have more flexibility in their course taking than the students who do meet standard, because that triggers you to be plugged into the next most advanced course.
As long as we don't set up barriers that allow
Right.
them to do so.
Yeah.
And that's the other piece, because some students those tests are just never, and they're never meant, those tests, and I will again say this, so it's a little problematic to me. Those tests were never defined for individual achievement.
Yes.
They are done for testing of a system. So anytime that we are looking at this for individuals, I get highly concerned. And so this, I understand that this is where the legislation has gone, but I do think we need to think about that because those are different. So with that, as they get placed into these, I think and I know that Puyallup School District had done this quite a ways back, probably 3 to 4 years. I think this is modeled actually after some of the work that they did. I know Everett did some work this way as well. How do you make sure, as we put students into these courses, how do we ensure additional resource support? Because sometimes what it is just building a confidence that, you know what, you can get through this piece and you'll be good. But unless we have those systems in place to support them, I'm concerned they'll back out and then say, then we haven't done so well really for them in that regard either. So how do we ensure the greatest likelihood of success as they go in there? And that, because, if my daughter was having a hard time, I have resources, I could go get a tutor. Is there any guarantee that our students will have similar access?
Yeah, so I think that's the bottom line. And it's interesting, there's references to the research behind this. They say, kids who take advanced courses do better in high school or in college. And they're saying there's a causation there that might be more of a correlation, right? Like you take an advanced course, you're probably prepped. Maybe you have resources or supports, or you're on a pathway that allows you to do that. So I think, there's this assumption that just plugging kids into advanced courses is suddenly the world's going to open and everything's going to be easy and they're going to be great in college. And I think what you're pointing to is, no, if you want to actually be successful, you're going to need a lot of supports, or we call scaffolding, to actually help you to pass that class so you can continue along the progression to dual language or dual credit. So I think, part of it, and this is where our teachers are going to have a lot to say as we're talking to them, is suddenly there are more kids in advanced courses, and how are we changing our practice to provide a broader range of support for a broader range of students? So if we really say every student who meets standard on Smarter Balanced in ELA goes into honors English in 9th grade, that's going to result in a change in the way we have to provide support for kids. So I think what you're saying is provide the support so they can be successful. Concretely, what that looks like, though, is that MTSS that we'll share in our study session is having assessments that you can screen all of your students to see how they're doing when they come in, that you have ways to progress monitor how they're doing over time, that you have evidence-based supports that follow in behind. So for example, in math, there's a series of interventions you do when a student's not getting a certain concept or a certain skill. Ideally, those are built into our curriculum and the teachers are equipped to deliver those. And then school teams or grade level teams are monitoring that for groups of kids. Then I think, as you pointed out too, then that opens the door for additional supports, tutoring, after school supports, in-school supports, mixing students in grade level or in same period so that they can be in groups to learn specific skills. So there's lots of ways to slice and dice it. But I agree with you 100% is if every student's taking advanced course suddenly, or more students are, there's going to need to be a lot more support to do that. And we were chatting a little bit in cabinet. All of these things are resource dependent. So there's the academic supports, but there's also the counselors who have to go back and schedule kids that don't want to be in these classes. And that's a greater impact on their time. And so there are resources that do have to go with changes like this. But to answer your question in short, yes, teachers will have to be looking at different ways to support kids because they're probably going to have more kids or a broader range of kids in their classes in these first years.
And so I assume as you go about creating a budget for the following school year, this will be taken into account when looking at resourcing that going forward, because that will be an impact and we need to be thoughtful about it. I think colleges have a lot of good experience in how do you work within these environments as they have worked to try to broaden how they are outreaching in different ways. So I think there's lessons learned there. There's good examples. I think it's the right thing to be doing. We should not be setting up barriers for our students. So the other question I had was, where is our baseline data currently at with this? So how will this be tracked over time? Because I know we've always seen this disproportionality within these courses. I know it's been improving in our AP over time. We've also been able to keep a solid programming in that as well. So I know there's already a lot of work done. How will that move forward with that data?
Yeah, one of the things that we're initially looking at, and Matt Gillingham is drafting the administrative policy with John for our equity policy. And so one of the measures in that policy is that we're looking at course enrollment patterns by groups. And so that will be one of the ways that we're annually checking to see, are we seeing an increase in access for all students in advanced courses? We also, if you recall years ago when we did some work on our math pathways, there was tracking over time of students, not only in the course in the year they had, but in the courses that followed. For example, we heard from folks way back when, and this was actually Matt Monabianco days of, boy, if you put kids in algebra in high school, they're going to just flounder. And then we would see that kids that were taking algebra in middle school, I should say, are going to flounder in high school. Then we looked at their grades and their course taking patterns, and they actually did very well once they got into high school and even in advanced courses. And so the data didn't show what our fears were. And so we were tracking over time individual students and groups of students as they went into more advanced courses. So both of those two things, one, having in our equity policy, we're actually tracking enrollment by groups, subgroups, and then tracking over time how students do in other courses in the sequence or in later years, so that we can make sure we're not setting kids up to say, yeah, we put you in these advanced courses early on, and then you started to have this series of challenges, and you started to fail courses actually, and you didn't get into advanced courses. Finally, the other big one that I think, just because it's the intent of the legislation, is to track dual credit enrollment and to see if we're seeing increases in the number of dual credit courses that kids are taking and earning college credit for.
All right, thank you. No, as I said, I think this aligns well with where we're going, just to avoid unintended consequences along the way. That
this
sometimes you fix one thing and something else happens, and so I just keep thinking additional support.
Yeah, agree. Mark?
Mike, I was thinking back to the earlier question, and then you're talking about scaffolding in supports. Perhaps aware as others of the available scaffolding for them, and the parents aren't aware.
Yeah.
And if they aren't, then I can see them being very apprehensive about, gee, do I want Johnny or Susie or whoever in that class with the idea that they may be over their head. But if they know that they've got scaffolding ahead, I think they might have a better feel for it. So the more we can promote that through the counselors, through the middle school folks as the kids are getting ready to go to high school, I think that'd be great, especially if there's an economic impact on the class. If there's fees for the class, I'm thinking the dual credit classes and so forth, where you have lower income students or possibly first time college students. If they know it's worth the risk, and there's also help financially, I think then you'll see perhaps some of our numbers shift and more equity in those classes. I think there's a fear factor, to be quite frank. I mean, I recall I was the first one in my family to go to college, and there were some that said no. But anyway, point is, I'd like to see us try and do some outreach prior to them even getting into that pathway, if you will.
Yeah.
So they feel they have the support.
Thanks. Cassandra?
And I just wanted to clarify, Director Bleesner, what was the request on the baseline information? Were you asking for current baseline information on who is taking what courses, or are you asking for something different? I want to make sure I understood.
I was, as Mike had commented, that's exactly it. Who is registering where, broken out by the subgroups and the different things. And we've looked at some of that before. But knowing that baseline now, and as I said, that ties to our policy for monitoring as well.
Great. I support that.
So one other component that really does come up, especially as you move into these upper classes, chemistry, and fees are attached. We have to remove those fees, because if we are mandating that students are being put into them, those fees need to be covered. And we really need to be thinking about how that is a barrier to entrance.
Yes, I just having a similar conversation with Christine Bell at Lake Washington today about just fees in general, and that's a great point. Like you said, once we start mandating it, it's no longer an elective.
And I do think, again, I know that's a resource, that's a component, but that's our AP tests, that's any lab fees, that's world language fees that we build in. It's all those components that we've done to sort of offset how funding is provided. As these get mandated and it is a public school, we should be removing those barriers completely.
All right, so to wrap it up here, just next steps. So we have, this is tonight, it's a first reading at the board meeting, and then October 18th would be the decision. If and when, and if we have to make some adjustments just to our framing of this, but we're looking at getting really clearly in our course catalogs, what are the courses that are the next most rigorous advanced course, so that people are very clear on what do you take when you meet standard in 8th grade, and then what are the courses that are available to you. For example, if you're taking an advanced course as a junior or a sophomore, what are the courses that are the next in the series or next most advanced? Then we update the procedures for opting out. So again, families are required to have that option. But I think it's like folks were saying, and Mark was saying, people really need to be very clear on, like, what are all the supports so that you could potentially be successful. So before you opt out, know that these are things that are in place for you. We have to also make sure we have a very good system for the automatic enrollment process. And so we'll be working with not only counselors and administrators and teachers, but data services, just about how do we automate the course that you're automatically enrolled into, because hand scheduling all the incoming 9th graders is a big task. And then finally, getting student family communication about that automatic enrollment out before they start actually signing up for their courses. So you can see all this kind of lines us up for 22-23, but we're back here in the fall because we have to get all this information ready in our course catalogs, because kids start signing up for courses middle of the year, which is coming sooner than later. Mark? Oh, you're muted. Mark, you're muted.
My wife's been looking for one of those for years. In respect to what Siri was saying, as we're starting to work through this, can we start looking up front so we don't have to play catch up with some of these kids to determine, let's get rid of this lab fee, let's get rid of this AP fee, so forth, because this is going to drive our numbers. This is going to put fences in front of those kids that can't afford it, or it's going to be touch and go for them to afford it. And I think that's going to affect our equity numbers, to be quite frank. And to be quite frank, it's going to affect those kids' ability to excel. And it's not fair. So if we have that up front, and we know that this class has this fee and that class has that fee, toss them.
Yeah, we do. And it's a kind of a yes and. We have students that are enrolled in advanced courses right now that will automatically be enrolled. So, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. That's a smaller subset of the whole. The 8th graders will most likely be going into courses that don't have fees. So we have a little bit of time to catch up. And, it's a smaller problem initially than it will be in 2 and 3 years when large numbers of kids are coming in. So, but bottom line, to go to your point, yes, we can start pulling fees for all the courses we have. Not pulling off entirely, but evaluating them, making decisions about when and how it makes sense, because all of those fees cover the cost of the courses, materials,
Sure.
trips, things like that, that we need to make sure we're not having fall through the cracks because we've canceled a fee or something like that.
One thing, especially, is the automatic enrollment.
Yes.
Once that's, I think, where it really comes into play when all of a sudden there's a surprise. Oh, by the way, you also owe $50 or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, well, I think that's all I had for tonight. And then, like we said, we have a first reading tonight and second reading coming up.
So I wanted to ask about that, just process wise. So it's on the consent agenda tonight for a first reading. And then it will come back to the board for adoption at the 18th meeting. Is that the idea?
Correct.
Okay. And is the proposal that would also be on the consent agenda on the 18th? Okay.
Yes.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes, I would hope that within that time frame, we could get some feedback on the questions and pieces we've put forward prior to that adoption component going forward.
And so
Agreed.
the specific questions that I documented were what classes, Cassandra asked what classes beyond what Lake Washington offers in math are available regionally. Siri, you asked a question about current demographic breakout in dual credit course enrollment. Or
I go beyond dual credit. I do all of them. I mean, I'll be honest.
Will you just be more specific when you say all of them?
Algebra would
Okay.
be one. Because we've looked at that before. Where are we at now? I'd be intrigued to know that. It's kind of across the board. How would you know that by removing these barriers, we've made change?
So do we want to strictly focus on math for this?
Nope.
No, we need a baseline for everything, I think.
So
And we perhaps don't need that for adoption of the policy, if that's what you were looking at, Mike. I think
No.
that's what
Yeah, I
we
would-
need seeing.
We need a baseline eventually.
So
Sorry,
even if you
Very
can
helpful.
come back and say, we can have a baseline in 3 months
Oh, yeah.
along these lines, I don't have any issue around adopting a policy in that regards, but knowing that this information will be coming, I think is beneficial.
And so
But
I
think
was
it
just
also
looking at
applies to-
some of the board's reports over time, and this data is embedded within both OE's and our result policy reports.
Agree.
So, yes.
Okay.
What I don't know is Tim Krieger may be watching right now, and he just maybe shaking his head and say this could be done in 4.5 minutes, or this could be a longer term question. And so I just want to make sure we're considerate of the request to make sure that the time to be able to do it appropriately. And I have no idea what the turnaround time is for the request. So I just want.
But not just for math, for ELA and also for science.
Yeah.
Correct.
I was going to say Cassandra's point about the advanced classes that are college level classes. I don't want to know about just the math classes. I'd like to know about any of those classes that can be also then college level, because math may be great for one student track, but it wouldn't be right for my student track. That's for sure. And I see that with other emphasis.
Yeah,
And my only problem with having it, I'm sorry, Mike, but my only problem with having it on consent as it comes forward, that some of these discussion points might be lost on the parents and the understanding of the scaffolding and so forth. If we could have at least a brief discussion of it as it's presented, so they'll understand that. If it's on consent, it's gone in 10 seconds. And I don't want to burden our time frame, but I also don't want to have parents not understand that it's out there, to be quite frank, the dozen people that might be listening.
I agree. I think, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think as John was saying, we want to check in with Tim. That we have lots and lots of advanced courses, and kids can go in multiple ways. And so that's part of the work too, is to figure out, like, automatic enrollment potentially cuts you off to lots of advanced options if we're not really clear on what course goes into what course. So we can share that, but I think And we can pull like all of our AP. We did this a number of years ago for a consolidated program review. We pulled AP enrollment by demographic group. And so we could do that. But again, when we say all classes, we really are talking probably hundreds of different options when you look at math, ELA, and science together. And so, it might be good also to talk about, are there some kind of key benchmarks within that large group that we're looking at over time as well? So math is a little easier because it's sequential, but ELA really can branch out to lots of really great advanced electives for kids. And similarly for science, probably even more so. And so, just because we don't have from year to year the same enrollment in different courses, over time we might. So I just want to be thoughtful about like giving data that actually helps us make decisions. But we'll work with Tim to figure out what courses, like John said, it might be easy just to pull all of our AP courses and all of our honors courses and all of our advanced courses and put them into a spreadsheet. Similarly, I think we heard what are the supports that are in place or could be in place, and what are additional options beyond high school.
And I think the other piece to this is if the board is thinking about this as a specific indicator in terms of your operational expectations, then we need to find where does this align with the operational expectations, because we're talking about an administrative policy right now that's going into place. And so if we want to align this, then that's work that the policy team and I will take on.
I was just going to say that my concern is more about having it on consent agenda. And I think it's very helpful to have the discussion in public so that parents can follow along and give public comment if they choose.
So Mike, I kind of agree. I wonder if you just give a brief synopsis just like you did for the board tonight, because it's helpful to give the background and history and some of the odd nuances to this implementation.
And then the next week come in with, here's some data that we will be pulling together, or next week, the next meeting, here's some data that we'll be pulling together to monitor this over time to make sure folks have information about the supports that will be available to them and options post-secondary.
I think it'll lower the fear factor.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity one of the things we're required is to communicate the change. And so that's one of the forms of communication. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so we're, is Diane on this? Diane, did you catch that? I guess we're going to pull that off the consent agenda and put on non-consent now.
Okay, great.
Timing on the agenda. You want to take it first on the agenda, non-consent agenda?
Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that tonight?
Which part?
Were you hoping to pull it tonight and have it on non-consent, or?
That's what I just heard.
Is it on consent for first reading?
It is.
It is.
You typically would not put something on consent for first reading because that would be the time where we have the discussion.
Well, there's 3 people who want to.
Okay, so why don't we just go ahead and pull it off? And Mike, you can essentially do what you did tonight.
Yep.
Is there a deadline, Mike, that we have to have this turned in to the state?
Terrible as this sounds, we're lucky that the Smarter Balance was delayed. Really, that's the measure that we use, one of the key measures we use to enroll, and so that won't happen until the fall. And then the advanced course taking is for courses this year for next. So really, it's queuing up for 22-23. That we do need to have things start to roll with counselors and administrators and teachers to identify courses and get things in the course catalogs. And again, even though we start sending those out in January, that rolls around really fast. We're going to start here probably November updating course catalogs with this information. So, and it's October 4th already.
Yeah, the more information beforehand, the better.
Great. And so Diane, you're making that change on the agenda for this evening?
It would be better for the board to make a motion to take it off the consent agenda to the non-consent. I'm afraid I'll break links if I change the agenda.
Okay, great.
All right, we'll do it that way.
Anything to keep the gremlins away.
And so process-wise, I just want to make sure I remember how this procedurally works. Eric will ask for a motion to approve consent, and someone will motion approval with modification. Is that correct? Okay.
Or they can simply do it when they go to approve the agenda for tonight. They can make the change at that point.
Okay.
The
Thank
first
you.
motion on they can amend the agenda at that point. The
Great.
first motion.
We'll do it that way. Okay, is that, any other questions on the presentation for the study session? Great, thank you. Then a second topic for tonight is a continued discussion of bond and levy planning. Dr. Holman.
Yes. And so, as the board knows, the journey continues with our levy planning. Used to be bond and levy, but not this time around. So it's language we've had to shift as well, with dropping the term bond for now. And so during study session, wanted to just review 3 specific things. One, in our last meeting, Barbara talked about with the update of assessed valuation that we were just made aware of. It does actually adjust the rates. And so we've worked diligently to modify the rates in all of our content, both the resolutions and the presentation you'll see tonight in the board meeting. Want to make sure that we discuss timing of the measures, and then the resolutions that you'll be seeing tonight and discussing tonight. They're in board docs. If you're in the study session for board docs, I did put a link directly to the content in the board meeting. So if you wanted to pull those up, you can. So Barbara, do you just want to talk through the updated rates?
Yeah, what we do every time around this year or around this time prior to the election is, so we've been planning based on assumptions. We know 2021 actual rates because those are being collected this year, and we make assumptions on 2022 and then the 23 through 26 rates going forward. That's part of the 4-year. And so in the fall, though, in early October, late September, we receive an estimated AV for 2022. So we are updating the 2022 rates based on that estimated AV. Our original estimate was 5%. The preliminary estimate is 10%. So we want to reflect our actual 2022 rates, and then what the levy collections are, the 23 through 26 rates, and then those will be affected. Those assumptions haven't changed. We're still making a 5% per year assumption. And again, that's a conservative assumption because we know typically the average does come in higher than that based on our last 5-year trend and the 10-year trend. So you'll just see the rates are slightly different based on that. And I don't know if you want me to kind of go over the rates themselves or...
Yeah, I think it might be helpful,
Okay.
just because we've
Sure.
been very used to the old rates, and now we have new rates.
Yeah, so the 2021 rates, the total tax rate is $2.57, and that's made up of, again, our EP&O around 90 cents, our capital facilities, our capital projects levy for tech and facilities of around 52 cents, and then both the bond, our debt service rate plus the 2019 capital levy is around $1.15. With the AV change for 2022, the total tax rate drops to $2.43. So around 85 cents for EP&O, 49 cents for capital, and then $1.08 for the rest of the measures. And then, so what that will do for the 23, 20 through 26 is, again, as you'll see the presentation tonight, the EP&O rate will be $1.03. The capital facility rate will be 49 cents. And then the construction combined rates will be around $1.32 around. And again, we'll show the rest of the rates beyond the 4-year window. So that's just the update. So instead of, I think originally you had seen like $1.09, 52 cents, and total of $3. So now it's $1.03, 49 cents, and a total of $2.84.
And so why is that important to note? I think it's important to note because you'll have stakeholders, reviewing our content from the last, 4 to 6 months where we're making other statements around rate and, project. And then this is a very distinct point in time where we are adjusting based on new information. And so helping folks understand that, I think, is really important as they're asking questions and, well, what about these numbers and those numbers? It's just part of the process, is updating our assumptions and actuals as information comes in.
So to just clarify, the total amount collected is the same across the board?
Correct. Yeah, does not change the total dollars that we'll be requesting, but does change the rates.
Thanks.
I got a barking dog here. So take a house, an $800,000, which is the number we've often seen in our presentations, assessed value house. This lower rate would mean that for a homeowner that any increase would be, that would mean that it would be a lower amount. I think the number I'd seen before, for example, would be about a $340 something increase in taxes for an $800,000. So now that number would be lower now, right, with this, right?
Yes, and again, the reminder about even when as our total AV goes up across the district, that's related to new construction as well and businesses. So the individual homeowner is not necessarily seeing the full impact of that, but they do see a positive impact because their individual rate goes down when the total AV of the district goes up due to new construction and things like that. So
okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
I think the other piece to that, though, is as AV grows across the district, an individual's house also increased in value as well. So that's what's really hard about narrowing in on a dollar amount and changes, and because it's so contextual to an individual. We can talk on grand scale what those changes are. And just so the board knows, we actually updated the average house price that we're referencing to $1 million instead of 800,000, just to be fair in how we're talking about taxes, because the median house is now in our district, I believe, is 927.
Yep.
And so we rounded it up to $1 million. Well, the math is way easier.
So the presentation tonight will reference a house value of $1 million and what that would look like for.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And let's give that background reasoning too, to make sure everyone realizes that we're not thinking everybody went to McMansions. Also, when we talk about that, one of the issues that's come up, especially when we talk about long-time owners in our district, especially older residents being priced out of the neighborhood or taxed out of the neighborhoods. I think we should also mention the fact that seniors and their exemption on some of the real estate taxes, that they should check into that, and that'll have an impact on how much their actual real estate taxes would be. Just so they're aware of it, so they don't see, oh my God, here comes the school, in addition to, see where I'm going?
Yes, and so I know there's a program. I don't know the details of that program, qualification. I mean, I've briefed it before, but I couldn't speak to anything other than each individual should look into it for themselves.
It's on the county website.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's where you find it.
And as we start to get more information on our levy, we will put an FAQ on our website, and that will have, and we always put that information included in our FAQs. So we'll
Fantastic.
have that
Thanks,
link
Barbara.
on our website as well.
Appreciate it.
Okay. The other topic is timing of all of these measures. And I think I told you last week that every day I flip-flop on this, and that is true. And we put the resolutions out on Friday, and you'll see that all of the measures are currently scheduled or being recommended in the resolution to run in February. That is true still. The resolutions do say that. And I flip-flopped 9 different times this weekend because I truly understand the reason to run them all in February, and I can articulate why we would run our construction measure at a different time. And so, but again, that's going to be something, if the board wants to make a different decision around timing, that's just going to be something that through discussion and conversation and motion you would do. And so I don't know if there's more discussion, if you've thought about it since our last meeting. I know Chris and I met last week and discussed it and tossed it around a little bit. So if there's other comments before the meeting tonight that we want to discuss, happy to do so.
Is your current position all February? Or are you saying you changed your position and you're going to tell us tonight?
No, the resolution says all in February, so that's where I'm at. And part of the reason is, I think it puts the district in the best position to have the information around the funding of these levies as early as possible. And so if we have noticed that all 3 levies pass in February, it actually gives us a really long time to plan for the construction aspects and things like that. So because of that, I think that's important. Let's say the construction measure wasn't to pass in February. It gives us 9 months to plan for whatever that next iteration is, be it a better campaign, be it whatever that is. And so I think there's some benefits in running all 3 in February. That ultimately is why the resolutions are what they are. And
You got 62 minutes to change your mind, though.
Yeah. Well, I think Diane would say no, that she won't allow me to change them.
Okay.
So.
And tonight, Barbara, will you have the, I guess I can do the math myself. If it's $2.84 and you're saying $1 million home is what you're basing the calculation on, then that changes. Well, you can only ask for one amount, and once you've, put it on the ballot, you can't ask for any more than the amount that you've originally collected anyway. So you're always going to need the amount that you said you need to build.
Correct.
Correct.
And so
that amount never changes, and I think that gets confusing sometimes for people, is that we can't jack it up if your house value goes up again. We can only collect the amount that we committed to collecting.
So for like the construction levy, it's a $295 million levy.
Right.
Once that goes on the ballot, that doesn't change.
Right.
Like, there's nothing that can change in that. Now, someone's individual home value can change, our total AV can change up or down. That doesn't change that 295. That just changes the divisor for any one individual homeowner in terms of what their property tax bill will be.
So rephrasing that, if your house is doing better than the average in the district, you might go up, but on average, it'll be a stable rate, dollars per year across the life of the levy.
Yes.
Do we perhaps shoot ourselves in the foot by, usually when you look at the average, you usually don't up it. When you look at that, you go to the lower end. Since this is 927, are we shooting ourselves in the foot by calling it $1 million as opposed to 900,000? You know what I'm saying? Usually when you decide to do that, you don't jack it up that high.
I think that the value in making the math easy is justified. And
I
we
figured 900,000 was easy too. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
And I'm no math whiz, you know. But if I can do it, Chris.
To me, it's important because the question people will have is, well, how much more is this going to cost me? right?
Yeah.
What's this going to cost me? And, you know, having that, if that is really the median, essentially close to the median assessed value now in our district, then I think it's important to have that information out there.
We also should say, look, if you already know that your house is not at that value, don't sweat it. Figure out your own math.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay.
And so then the other piece is, are there any questions about the resolutions? We were very particular in how we worded the resolutions and the ballot language around, you know, elementary, middle school, and high school capacity. Barbara, are there other things that you want to point out in the resolutions? We were very particular in how we worded those things.
Yes, and so I think the EP&O and the capital levy resolutions are fairly standard. There are no major changes from, prior years. The voters pamphlet is now required. It used to be optional, and we used to have to put in our resolution that, we requested the voters pamphlet, but so you'll still see voters pamphlet information in the resolution just to confirm. Legal counsel says they still like to see it in there to confirm that we're participating in the voters pamphlet. On the construction levy, the building excellence capital levy, we are going to have to do some tweaking of the language. I think our attorney let us know late, before we get, so the draft resolutions that you had, I didn't want to change anything between when you saw that on Friday and this morning, but I think we do have, we may have to reword it slightly to be within our word limit. So, our attorney's assistant was out on vacation on Friday, and so we had some, looking at that. So we'll probably, we know these are drafts, and so that's totally okay. And so we will do just a little bit of tweaking in the language to make sure we have our word count correctly. So that's
Barbara, I noticed something this year too that I didn't recognize in years past, that not only are they limiting your words, but they're also limiting how you divide them up. So it's like 3 paragraphs or 2 paragraphs, not 3, or 3, not 4, whatever it amounts to. So just be aware. I think that changed this year.
And I'm specifically talking about the resolutions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about the border pamphlet. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Just a quick clarifying question on that. The ballot language that I see in the resolution, that title, building excellence capital levy, that title will appear on the ballot. Cool.
That title will appear on the ballot. Correct.
Excellent. And there's a parenthetical to follow that says critical construction needs. That will also appear?
Yes.
Also good.
Yes.
Okay.
We double checked, and that's similar to how we the parentheses item is similar to what we did last time. Now, that said, once we submit these in December, there's still, if there's any concern with the ballot language from King County's perspective, they will reach out to our legal counsel and let us know.
Okay, I like it. I think it's great. That's
thank you for calling out that title. That's something we landed on, and really that building excellence is the entire program, not just this single levy, and you'll see that in the presentation tonight as well.
Great.
I'm going to jump in here, and this might be a segue, but I'm wondering if there needs to be some kind of advocacy, and maybe it's not, advocacy isn't the right word, but since we're in more constant contact with our legislators and even congressional members, there's some advocacy that could be done around the limit for senior citizens and disabled persons and the exemption that they qualify for, because it's pretty difficult to get an exemption in this area. And so maybe that's something that we can also think about in order to help the people that it might be most difficult on.
I have neighbors who got their age discount easily. All they had to do was fill up, and they were very helpful, to be quite frank, when they called into the county. So
Yeah, I have neighbors that just because somebody has a pension from back in the day, they don't qualify for it, even though they're barely over the limit, and there's no relief there. So
Okay. All
just
right.
wondering about that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
There was.
see-
I'm blanking. Yeah. Order of the items on the ballot. We had a trouble. I remember years ago where we had the big ticket item as the third item, and therefore it ended up on the back of the ballot, and some people didn't see it allegedly. Is there a possibility that we can reconfigure the order of the ballots at all? Go one on.
The resolutions are presented in, the Proposition 1 is the EP&O, the Proposition 2 is the capital levy, and Proposition 3 is the building excellence capital levy. I think you're remembering two elections ago, Mark. I think in 2014, and since that time, King County has put in bold letters, turn the ballot over. So they recognize that back after the 2014 election, and have taken steps to make sure people turn their ballots over. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first reading tonight, we'll have a presentation. Okay.
And so my presentation is, while it has component parts, it's really a whole. I'm also wondering if it would be helpful for me, as we may pull this video and use it for different purposes, for me just to go through the total presentation versus board asking questions in the middle. I'm fine if we do it either way. I know I'm going to use this video. I'm going to send it to our district leadership team to make sure they're up to speed. You may want to use the video to, a community member.
All right, great. Everyone hold your questions until the end of the presentation so that we got a nice clean video.
Can I ask one question right now then?
Please do.
Okay, so in looking at the construction levy, or the building excellence, I guess I should say would be better, and noticing how the rates are shifting as you go through that in the dollar collection, I'm assuming, will you be touching on that it's the dollar amount and that the replacement, the way it's, I mean, I don't know. That's one of those pieces when you look at that, it's not, but I know most people aren't. But I do know I look at that and you start to recognize, well, how are you pulling that off and not increasing taxes? And it's because of the way you structure the debt and the paying off of bonds and levies.
Yes.
Yeah, and while we probably won't be able to go into that level of detail tonight, but that is part of our FAQ information. We can share, that bonds are being paid off. And again, this also allows us to layer in, a potential 2024 bond measure as well. So these rates were structured so that could occur.
Well, and really the whole plan is structured to accomplish the goals around, building and construction, but also to take into consideration taxes paid by individuals as well. This is the one plan that allows us to achieve both of those while doing a balance of both levy and bond. So obviously the bond program all the way through had the best in the moment tax implications, but it's longer term. So there's kind of pros and cons to the different strategies we brought forward. I think this one, I think it's the best of all worlds, actually.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, the third topic on the agenda for tonight is a start of a discussion around the 2022 legislative priorities. Let's hear it. Dr. Holman, could you tee us up, and then I think Director Sage will lead us through this a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize, Director Sage and I did not have a chance to connect beforehand, and so I don't know fully how much we have tonight, because also WASDA has delayed their processes, and really the district's process and WASDA's process do go hand in hand. And so, but really annually, we work to develop Lake Washington School District legislative platform, and that really is the priorities of the district and the board to make sure that as we are thinking about our advocacy, that we are consistent in that advocacy, that we have data to associate with that advocacy, and it is the high priorities for us as a district. And so, Director Sage, I'll hand it to you to see what discussion we want to have, knowing that there's a lot more work to be done in the future.
Could you put last year's platform up on the screen?
Yes, I can. Give me about 45 seconds.
So I've had the opportunity to have continued advocacy work through some other organizations I belong to and kept in touch with our members of Congress and the legislature over the summer. And there's a few things on last year's platform that I sense there's not an appetite for. And I wonder if we look at last year's platform, which is now on the screen, and just take a first pass if each of us would think, what is maybe one thing that probably isn't going to happen in the legislature this year, and maybe we shouldn't focus on it? My suggestion is I don't sense any appetite for simple majority school bonds, even though that would directly assist us in our issues with trying to keep up with growth. If there's something you see missing on this, given the last year that we've had, or if there's something that you feel, I'm not sure that anyone's really even going to pay attention to that this session, since we're very much still in response to the virus. I think we really want to laser focus what our advocacy is.
Can we bump that up in size just a little bit? I know I could go find the page, but I just didn't do it here.
So I appreciate the fact that it's unlikely that simple majority is going to happen this year, but at the same time, I feel like going into 2024, we want to keep that on our advocacy. So anybody we're talking to knows we still care.
That's fair.
Didn't we get hold harmless on last year, John? Didn't that come through?
I think so.
We did get some hold harmless related to COVID. The ESSER funding that we got $350 per pupil, where the many districts were getting $3,000 per pupil.
Yeah,
they didn't hold us. They gave us some up to $500 per pupil, so still significant underfunding. We did get some enrollment hold harmless and transportation hold harmless.
Okay.
And Chris, I'll just mention that the Times had an article on ESSER funding this morning. Yeah. Okay. And that really kind of shows there were some districts that got $6,000 per student in ESSER funding, and
that's not going to be us.
It was not us, but it doesn't mean that every single student in our district doesn't need technology and doesn't need the social emotional learning supports. And that's the frustrating piece, is all students need supports.
So John, in the context of the urgent, is there a residual piece of hold harmless we want to keep on there? And the other question would be on the emergency liability response. Is that obsolete? Has it been addressed? I do think we're still, as Director Sage noted, we're still in the throes of this thing. And if there is still potential liability exposure that we have taken, even as we get into such things as the vaccination drives and stuff like that, if there's potential liability exposure, then maybe we should keep it on there. But I want your take on that. I would like your take on that.
Yeah. This is an initial response, Chris. It feels like the first bullet point there, there's some additional work that we could do. The second bullet point there, I feel like, and others can chime in if they disagree, it just doesn't seem as necessary in terms of a platform. It doesn't mean that we don't need to continue to make sure that we're not paying attention to issues of liability and things like that. But in terms of an actual platform for legislative advocacy, I'm not sure that's worth the time to spend when other things are of higher priority.
Thanks.
Well, I think it kind of fell on deaf ears with a lot of folks too, because it sounded very self-serving and very escape, giving us our own selves an escape door, and I don't think people appreciated that on Capitol Hills.
I want to recognize that Siri and then Eric have their hands up.
So, there's a few things. I do think under the urgent, the hold harmless doesn't have much that we need to do at this point. I think there are I think recovery is probably what we want to be looking at now. And speaking to that, I think the ESSER issue and the component of there are costs that we have incurred that we are continuing to incur because we just have the number of students that we have in which to do so. PPE costs the same regardless of where you live. So I do think that's a component. I agree with Chris. We have to keep school construction funding as a component. That is a continual piece, and working around SCAP and changing that formula. That's just a constant, and simple majority has to stay too, because that is just a constant. We have to keep hammering that home. The piece that I would argue is possibly vital is technology funding. It's time to pressure that heavier and harder because we went to one-to-one. We do that locally. Those are all local dollars, and this is true across the state. So if equity is where we're going with this, then really that's a piece that we should be trying to push and lead in the technology side. And our area should be, and our legislators should be willing to do that. We just need to be able to tell the story. So I think technology funding is a big component to build into the prototypical school model that hasn't been there. I think some of the unintended impacts like SEB and the other ones that Barbara can do a better job than I can of articulating the multiple different impacts in the last 4 years on our budget due to mandates that have come through that we are now absorbing locally. And that is all post McCleary. And I think those are just things that we need to keep putting home. SEB impacts are levy dollars. So here you're saying you funded, but here's the component that's impacting us where we need to go with this. And then social emotional learning, you have to keep on there. And then I would keep attract, recruit, and retain high quality. I think that's a big component. That's part of our equity piece. That's a huge piece. We continue pushing that with the legislature as well.
And special education, we continue to have some of the biggest gaps around special education. So I don't see that falling off this list.
So the question is, are there small pieces of these that we can start to discuss and highlight with people more effectively? I guess that would be the component to start to think about.
Yeah, so Siri, are you suggesting we move tech funding out of ongoing and into urgent?
Possibly. I'm not sure if it's urgent. My challenge is we had online hit. You saw what happened throughout the state. We have internet broadband issues still happening. There are one-time dollars people are using through ESSER to do a lot of this. But you've got to keep technology. That's a 4-year replacement.
Yeah.
If you get $6,000 a student, you can afford to do all of that work.
Once, yes. What about in 4 years when those have to be replaced?
Right.
And so there's no ongoing. So if we really want to take what we've learned from online and leverage that, consistent source of funding is going to be a piece on how to do that.
And that's statewide. I mean, that becomes something where we are potentially leaders in it, but it's certainly something where everyone had to flip that switch over the last year. And
the legislature is
aware
having discussions about this. I think they made a little bit of progress last session, actually. And our legislators, this is one of the things that they are sort of all over.
And I think we just need to be clear, what would that be? Perhaps it's not just, it's not funding in general. It's fund this piece specifically that we could really leverage this year for what we've learned and tell that story and then just start to pull it in that way.
And I'm going to suggest that we did a couple of 90-second or 2-minute videos last year that I was able to send to legislators and members of Congress that just told the story, like special education told the story. John's part was talking about the shortfall in funding. We were at like $19.2 million that had to be made up locally. And that's just a quick, okay, they see it, there's a visual, hopefully they remember. I felt like that was effective. I don't know, John, if you thought it was.
I think it was, and I just want to compliment both you and myself in those videos. We did a great job. No, I agree that those short snippets, I mean, the world appreciates video right now. I'm not suggesting a TikTok channel for this, but no, I agree that being able to share video and content that way, people are more apt to digest it differently.
I will say that the kids made it. Everybody's interested in kids, and they did a fantastic job just being themselves, of course. And that really, really hits home when you see the kids and how they are affected or what great things they're doing that we need to be able to continue funding. Anything else, Siri, before I move to Eric? All right. You're muted, Eric. Okay.
I just want to echo, I agree with Chris and Siri about the need to keep school construction funding and simple majority on our platform. I think we just need to keep talking about it and keep it in the mind of the legislators. The other thing I think I really want to highlight this year, I would like to see us highlight, is attracting, recruiting, and retaining high quality and diverse staff. We've made equity work a priority for us, and I think our platform needs to match that. So, you know, those are the three things that pop out at me as I look at it. The other thing that's, and I mean, probably, and we'll have an opportunity to talk about this more, I may be getting ahead of myself, but you know, one of the benefits of these last couple of years is that we've learned how to address some of our facility needs by providing high quality remote education. And I think having a platform around, you know, providing continued flexibility for districts to be able to innovate in that space and provide it. I'm honestly having a hard time even remembering what, I know that going into this current year, there was a question as to whether we would be able to continue providing remote education. I know that was resolved that we were, but I don't remember, I don't know if that's another temporary resolution or if that's something that's now permanently baked in, but I think
it also revolves around alternative learning experience and how they only fund that at 75% of FTE. And so there's definitely advocacy on that issue alone.
So that's
but I do, you know, looking at this, I see a lot of opportunities. Sorry, John. A lot of opportunities to retain what we have on here already.
So my comment, I had my hand up. My comment was about Eric's comment around the instructional hours rules. Yes, they updated them this year. The Continuous Learning 2.0 rules, they work for a full-time student. One of the things that we've thought about is just think if we could actually have more flexibly scheduled courses. Take a high school student would prefer to do, you know, a remote class, maybe not have that first period. It's one of the ways that we accomplished a later start during remote learning that many of our constituents and students really appreciated. So just the whole piece around what defines an instructional hour, it's very rigid right now for good reason. I understand why, but I also think the experience we just had as a state should also help us learn from, and I think we demonstrated that educators, their interest is in educating students, even in that remote space. I know that was a fear of the state board previously, is that there would be a compromise in the learning of students. And so, but I think we've learned a lot. And so developing a platform around that provides flexibility for, you know, Eric pointed out, for space and capacity, but also some unique learning experiences for students.
Mark, I see your hand up. Just one follow-up to John's comments. So in July, just as a private individual, because I didn't have board approval, because I didn't ask, because it was like, oh, suddenly here's the SBE meeting. So I went to the State Board of Education meeting and advocated for this kind of flexibility. Barbara, thank you for getting me some information that I was able to use. And there are several SBE members looking at this and discussing how we could move forward with that kind of option where it could allow kids a late start to high school who really are looking for that as an option, and just the creativity of being able to take a course that maybe we couldn't offer and take it online in some other form and still receive that high school credit, possibly even college credit. So yes, I would love to put that in our advocacy for this year. Mark.
I think as we lead into it, and it's hard to read really in the preamble above the vital, urgent, and ongoing, but I think we talk about lessons learned. Yeah, I think we lean on it heavily to talk about, we learned some lessons. We learned it the hard way. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But we learned what are priorities when you have more remote learning. And we also learned that there were some kids prior to the pandemic who are having connectivity problems that we just really didn't see until we hit the pandemic. And I think that was one of the few silver linings in it, that if there was any, to be quite frank, to be had out of the pandemic, that we realized that there are some kids geographically or economically that were just having signal problems that couldn't be taken care of without those hotspots. And I think we could talk about how we need to, we don't want to go backwards. And so I think in that preamble, we talk about lessons learned from our perspective, but also from a broader perspective.
Are you suggesting that are you thinking about changing the preamble to address that, Mark? Is that what you're saying?
I was thinking, yeah, we might want to talk about lessons learned and lessons we're still learning, to be quite frank. You see where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
It just makes it more current. And it also gives us to be quite frank, I think that's going to be the opening sentence with any legislator. We said we learned some lessons, we learned them the hard way, and we don't want to go backwards. I think there's also a lot of, I think, federal funding we're not tapping into that is not exactly the top layer. And so we need to work with Del Benny's office as much as possible. See what is out there that we're just not seeing on the surface, if you will.
Okay. Do you want to send me a follow-up email on that?
Sure.
Okay. Any other thoughts on what we might want to add or subtract? In my mind, I'm still trying to get it all on one page and not have our font go any smaller. I'm trying to think how we can word this and put all the topics that are really vital, urgent, and ongoing and get our message across. So Siri.
So the only other piece that I could see that we might be pulling from is as we go through for the General Assembly with WASDA's ledge priorities as well, and go through those, are there items that come to the surface there as we read through that we haven't seen coming through here or through those discussions that we might want to pull in?
Sure, and I know you were working on the spreadsheet that has all of the positions. Do you have any idea when that might be?
You had sent me the one that was done, so we can just send that out.
Okay. And then ask for sort of a rank vote, or just pull out your top 10 or top 20?
There's a combination. So there's a piece of whether or not you would approve or disapprove of current coming forward. So that's sort of step one. And then based on that, then you would pull forward using the standing positions as well. And then the permanent ledge positions to then rank order from there. And that we have done in the past. Usually what we did though is it's like, yes, I think it's really important. Yeah, it's kind of important. Nah. So it's on a scale of 1 to 3 or a scale of 1 to 5. And then we're able to rank it from there.
That sounds like about what we did last year, but I think I missed one or two and confused the this version or that version on a couple. So I'll go back to that.
Because we combine things and certain things and all those different components, and that's what makes it a little harder to do.
Right. The other piece on that totally just lost my train of thought. Anyway, the WASDA conference for General Assembly is actually at the end of the month, so it's over a month later than normally happens, just because they had to cancel the in-person event and then prepare to put on a virtual event. Mark.
Sandra, when it comes down to the graphics, you're talking about not trying to confine it to one page and not make it any smaller and so forth. Even pre-pandemic, we were having legislators who are saying, don't give me paper, send it to me electronically. Perhaps that gives us, pardon?
That's what we did. We didn't give any paper copies out. We emailed it to them.
Well, I'm thinking that might really give us some flexibility in the layout that will, one, allow you to get as much as you want, not as much, but more so, but also affect the readability of it. I mean, I'm sure that some of our computer graphics folks in communications would love a challenge. There's no reason we have to figure it out for them. Sure.
And if we can accompany it with video, that's very short and succinct, that tells the story, because they're always asking us for the story that goes behind the data.
Definitely.
Or goes with
if they can identify with the kid, because it looks like their nephew or their niece or their own kids, or they hear it in the kind of presentation they get at the dinner table, then I think that it'll go a long ways to beyond the stilted, especially like with the 60% majority. That seems so technical and so out there, but yet it's so necessary. Whereas if you had a kid talking about, gee, when we vote in class, it's 50 plus 1. Why in the heck do you adults have to go to something like this? I don't know.
Thanks.
Or show a classroom voting. I mean, that might even be more appropriate.
With masks
yes.
on.
There you go.
Any other comments? Okay, to avoid having something that seems like it could be a serial meeting, I'll send each of you an Excel spreadsheet, and please only send it back to me. Otherwise, it can be looked at as, hey, you're kind of holding a meeting without allowing the public in to view it. So I'll just collate all the answers and then turn around and bring it back. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. The last topic on our agenda for tonight is a discussion around guidelines for public comment. Dr. Holman, can you tee this up a little bit, and then I can talk about it too?
Yeah. As the board knows, we've had increased public comment. We've also had some unique public comment, anonymous public comment. And so it just caused Eric and I to kind of discuss, are there other boundaries or parameters? Do we want to make sure we clarify the rules of public comment for this board? And so that was kind of the conversation that we had. I intended to connect with legal counsel just to get their feedback. Haven't done that yet. Did find a ACLU reference around Washington State. They actually have kind of a Q&A around public comment in Washington State for public boards, which was of interest. I don't think it was anything beyond what we generally know about public comment. That it has, if you're going to make it available, you need to make it available to everyone. You can put limits based on time. You can't put limits based on viewpoints, which is a key area, and that if there's disruptions, that you can act accordingly. But a disruption isn't, let's say, a hand motion that you disagree with, or, things like that, that demonstrates like allegiance to X, whatever X is. And so, public comment, if made available, because it's not required, most public boards do allow for public comment. And if you're going to do that, it really is a forum that is an open public forum that people can come and provide their comment. Eric?
Yeah, so I mean, part of this was we started receiving a little bit of an anonymous written public comment. There's, I think, maybe only one tonight in the packet, and that is part of the record. At this point, the volume isn't such that I think we need to make a decision, but I just wanted to have a discussion around, whether people are comfortable allowing people who may not even be members of our community to anonymously comment, or who may be members of our community to anonymously comment at our meetings, both in writing or in person or by Teams. So I just I think it's something we want to we at least need to talk about, and I want to have an understanding where people are at, so that if the volume does change, that we can then have a more informed decision. So Mark, your hand went up first.
Yeah, two things. One, it used to be almost de rigueur that people would, when they came up to the podium, they would say, "Okay, my child goes to this school and that school," and if they have two or three, whatever. The point is that we're able to really identify, and I think as recently as the last public meeting we actually fully held, there's at least one speaker that didn't have kids in any of the schools at all. And so I think I would like to have us to have that be one of the preambles to anybody either speaking or when they write to us, say, we are in X school, my student is here and there and so forth. That way it doesn't prevent them from lying, to be quite frank, but I think it does prevent them from having that much of a credibility, to be quite frank. Because if they don't have kids in our district, or they don't live in our district, then it really doesn't add to their credibility. On the anonymous versus non-anonymous, 99% of the time I agree with you, Eric. It all ought to be with name. The only time I can think of
just be clear, I'm not sure that I don't know that I agree with that. Okay. I'm actually okay with some anonymous comment, but
well, that was what I'm getting to the point of. When they're talking about a situation in a school, when they're talking about a situation and they're concerned that there might be retaliation, either the students or the families, or one group of kids versus another group of kids, I can almost understand the idea of wanting to be anonymous in a public comment, with the idea of then being able for them to come back to us privately and discuss it. In fact, I might even encourage, if they really don't want to be in public comment, maybe this is something for private discussion. Just a thought.
Yep. Director Sage?
On that thought, don't we have that vector alert system that anybody can put in an anonymous concern? Is that just for students, or is that also for parents? It's staff members as well can.
I'm going to have to check on that. I've always assumed it as a student support,
Right.
So I can follow up on that. It's a good question.
I don't think it's very well known, to be quite frank, Cassandra. Do you?
What's that?
I'm not sure it's really that well known about the public vector or what you
every secondary school is publicizing it.
Okay, well, I'm thinking the parents probably don't have a concept of it, especially when it gets down to elementary.
It might even be on the home page when you
go
to the school's site, but I haven't checked that. I've just seen it on some.
I think they have to be reminded that certain aspects are there, because all of a sudden it starts looking just like graphics, as opposed to, oh, gee, there's an opportunity for me to help here, and they just kind of slide by it. You have to be reminded that there's an option here, just for, for not only the move-ins, but also for bad memories from year to year.
I'm trying to remember what my comment was going to be. Come back to me.
Okay, Director Bleasner first, then. You're on mute. Wouldn't be a meeting if you.
If I would remember. So I appreciate public comment and the need. I think keeping the time limitations on it is valuable. The whole piece, I think, requesting name and residence or children in the school, I think is a perfectly reasonable request. I don't think we have any authority to say if you don't tell us that, you can't speak. I am fairly certain that we would not have authority to do so, because when you open the mic, we provide opportunity for anybody who comes, not just for our residents. So that would be a one legal question that would need to be asked. That is my understanding of that ruling around public comment. I do think it's challenging as the public comment gets to vitriol. And gets to potentially to a hate speech component. At what point do we need to take a position on that? And I'm not sure this environment allows us to, because of the standard in which it is done. And so I do think that's an important thing to think about, because there have definitely been times when there has been definite components that have been very challenging, I would say. And how do we then want to respond to that within the realm of public comment at public meetings? Because I am a strong believer that public comment is their opportunity to speak to us. It is not the time to engage. The times where we have done it, it has not gone well for the most part, is what I would say. It tends to sometimes heighten issues as opposed to working to how do we hold these conversations. So I think those are the pieces that my concern is this really about, is it a platform for somebody to get their message out? And are we facilitating that through this process of public comment or not? So those are some of my concerns that I see. But I value public comment. I get the right. I believe it needs to happen. Those are my concerns.
And I would just say, since you helped me remember what I was thinking about a few minutes ago, I think the public has a right to comment. I don't think you have to be a parent with a student in school. The public who supports us through, funds us, really deserves to have a spot where they can get that public comment. What I get concerned about is when we get public comment from Texas. I don't feel like we have to put public comment from way outside of our district on the website. And the anonymous comment, I can see where anonymous public comment, people may say things that they wouldn't have said before, but if there is a way that maybe if there was a system in place where someone was concerned about being anonymous and there was one trusted individual that they could talk to and say, look, just verify I live in this area, etc., and then not have to give their name to us or on public roles. I don't know the legalities of whether or not that applies. I also can't imagine when you reminded us that public comment does not have to occur, a board has to just decide whether or not they would like to allow it. Absolutely, we have to have public comment.
Yeah. Chris?
So I sympathize with the frustration, and at the same time, it's kind of an occupational hazard. I mean, I'm sorry. We're stuck dealing with a public where I guarantee you there are thousands of people who didn't vote for pick your board member. And those aren't even the people who are necessarily offering the anonymous comment. And so my general attitude on this is, as long as we can keep control of our own meeting, and, the 30-minute timeline, the 3 minutes per individual, to the extent we can enforce that, and I know that we occasionally let a student talk a little bit longer than 3 minutes, but this is something where got to enforce it as best you can. And having something written go into the record of our meeting, if someone wants to write something hateful under a pseudonym, let them be an idiot. It's an internet troll. It doesn't mean that I'm going to bother reading it once I get past the point that I've diagnosed it as an internet troll. So to me, this falls under the bullies. Ignore bullies when they bully. these voices, I'm not going to dignify them with worrying about what to do about them. I'm going to simply ignore them. Anyway.
Okay. That works for me. So we'll continue on. Just keep this on everyone's radar. We'll check back in if we need to. Yes, please.
Yeah, the question is, are we still holding to the 30 minutes? My impression, from what I'm remembering, the answer is no.
We are. There have been some exceptions to that of late, where we have gone over that time to allow substantial public comment on issues around the equity policy. Is really what it was.
And that's a really good question, Siri. I mean,
but yes, the script for each of our meetings says that the board dedicates 30 minutes for. And I've read that aloud at every meeting, whether or not we've ultimately followed it or not. That is what we say our policy is.
Right. So I would just say we want to be sure that we're very clear that if that's our policy, that we're following it. If we're going to change it, that we are clear we are changing it as a board to change it. Or we change that policy, just because otherwise then it's due to just pressure from one side or another.
Yep.
Mine is just consistency so that we can be consistent as it comes through and follow that policy.
Okay.
Totally agree that extending it made absolute sense.
Or knowingly deviate from it where appropriate. I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
And just to be clear, I don't believe the board's policies currently have public comment as part of it. And if it does, I'm just not remembering.
Okay.
Siri, you believe it does?
I believe we do have public comment listed under there. Maybe I don't. When we review it, let's look.
Okay. Okay, because we should review. So if we do, and I'm just not recalling it, and maybe it is under the board meeting process policy. We should make sure that the board's policy aligns with the language that's currently listed on the website.
We do have it in there.
Okay.
It's almost word for word what is in is normally read aloud.
Gotcha.
Provide 30-minute period at the beginning of meetings during which visitors may express an opinion. Each individual is provided up to 3 minutes. OGP 3 for those at home. Okay, it's 6:49. We've reached the end of the agenda for the study session. We got through some, 4 topics tonight. Is that right? Pretty good. With 10 minutes to spare. So I guess that we've reached the end of our agenda. So the study session is adjourned. We'll be back at 7 p.m. for the board meeting.